now. We're all Q-tag dudes right now. So, kind of skewing things a bit.
It was a lot easier to get myself to get up and get to work yesterday when I was like, oh, it's 4 games. I can probably just bang the whole thing out before the show. Today I woke up at the same time. It was just like, so what, I'm going to get 3 of the games done? It's not going to fucking matter.
And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Strategy Show. It is Wednesday, November 2nd. I am Josh Engleman. I am joined by Adam Scherer. We are brought to you by Prize Picks. 10-game NBA slate today, although there are 11 games. There's an early one at 6 o'clock today, so if you're really a degenerate, you can get into some showdown single-game stuff. But anyway, before we get that started, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Adam, did you hate yesterday as much as I did?
Yes, I did. Yesterday was absolutely brutal. Pretty much jammed in O'Neal, Vooch, Kyrie, and Banchero. O'Neal came through as everyone expected. The other 3 were garbage. I also ended up at lock. I had like 25% Jalen Williams, 25% Poku. Once they started Williams, I didn't think it was that much better for Williams because he was just going to be playing a bunch of minutes with Giddey and SGA. But I had no idea what Poku's minutes were going to do. So I ended up getting like basically all of my Poku just becoming Williams from a minute standpoint. That obviously was awful. Everything was just terrible yesterday.
Yeah, I didn't swap. I swapped off some of my Poku and like tried to grab a little bit more Jalen Williams, tried to grab the things that I could. Still kept some. Ultimately saw that he smashed. That worked out really well, but all the Williams didn't help. Kyrie.
The issue for me was like, it's not that I wanted to get to more Jalen Williams. It was just once I like reprojected OKC and gave some extra minutes to Williams, it's like, I don't know. Like I ended up just giving 16 minutes to Baisley, 16 to Poku, 16 to Robinson Earl. That was the other part. Like Robinson Earl starting was just like, I didn't even have him in the rotation. So gave him 16 and it just ended up flattening everything out and forcing all of the value that was left to go to him. So that sucked. Goran Dragic did well. That was cool. Oh, yeah. Patrick Williams pissed me off. I thought I was going to get a lot of him. He had a big game. I ended up not getting a lot of him because he was projected for like 25% ownership. Came in at like 15, so that was annoying. Yesterday was just bad.
Very annoying across the board. Nothing will annoy me more than Kyrie Irving. I'm very happy that it's him because it's really easy to not like him to begin with. But I told you in a DM yesterday, he's either going absolutely crazy tonight or he's going to be total ass. And boy, oh boy, was he total ass. Just a total unequivocal, as low of a floor game as you could possibly get for somebody that's like a normal starter playing 30 plus minutes. And he was in 80-something% of my lineups. Just a death sentence.
Well, and it was like doubly bad because Kyrie didn't give a shit, but then like Jock Vaughn figured out that Kyrie didn't give a shit and just didn't play him. So like you didn't even get to like tease yourself and be like, oh, he's going to go off in the second quarter because he's just sitting on the bench.
Yeah. And then, first bucket with 10 minutes to go in the fourth quarter of the game.
Yeah. He had that one stretch where he picked up like 6 fantasy points in like 30 seconds. And
it was meaningless.
Yeah.
He was the worst play on the slate, and that included Tyler Hero, who got injured relatively early. It's tough to do. And when I say worst play, I mean relative to salary expectations, what you would need to get out of him to be good. He was like 37 points shy of that.
Yeah, I was kind of laughing because when you talk about whenever we transition from like MLB into NBA, we talk about how, ownership is totally different in NBA because, LeBron James is never going to get outscored by the equivalent of like his 9-hitter. In the fourth quarter yesterday, Kyrie Irving had less fantasy points than Dwayne Dedman, like among others.
Oh man, I'd rather never hear that. That stings. You want to get into this one? 10 gamer. Lots to talk about. The worst part of today's slate is the timing of everything. 3 7:30 tips, 4 8 o'clock tips. This is not a day that I want to be on live before lock. Unfortunately, I am on live before lock. We are prime for just craziness. There's not too much really true crazy stuff for these games, but when you get 7 of them in that first half hour for tip, you're welcoming on chaos. So be ready for late swaps tonight. It's going to be a lot. You ready?
Yeah.
Boston Celtics are 2-point favorites in Cleveland, 220 total. This one's pretty cut and dry. There's not a ton of ownership coming into the Boston side. They are at full strength. Malcolm Brogdon, 11% owned on DK, is the highest owned player that we have on either DraftKings or FanDuel for Boston. Marcus Smart got to like 9 on FanDuel. I don't find Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum to be all that appealing, other than they are Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, but tough defensive matchup for Cleveland. You know, they've got the Twin Towers in the paint. Do you prioritize anything from Boston today?
I don't really think so. Not a very appealing matchup. Not a team dealing with injuries. So, like, obviously, Tatum and Brown are always going to be fine to get to. 10,000 for Tatum, 8,300 for Brown. Neither one really stands out there. Malcolm Brogdon pulling the most ownership on DraftKings at 4,500. Sure, probably plays 25, 26 minutes, but not a spot that I'm really excited to get to.
Yeah. Have you seen the difference between Brown's usage rate this season and Tatum's? Brown's outpacing him by like 2 points or 3 points right now, which is
you think that
a little bit. Not really. It hasn't been the standard issue before. I didn't think it was interesting considering Jason Tatum is $1,700 more expensive on DraftKings and Brown is $2,000 cheaper on FanDuel.
Yeah, I mean, going back to the start of last year, it's only like a 1.5 point difference too. But in Tatum's favor.
Yeah. Yeah, I was surprised to see it swing the other direction.
Still more.
I mean, ultimately, like the Bills are going to dominate it, and no one else is. So
right, still more fantasy points per minute for Tatum.
1.36
this year for Tatum, 1.17 DraftKings points per minute for Brown. Slightly higher assist percentage, slightly higher rebounding percentage for Tatum. But yeah, they both have been really productive.
But yeah, like I just really hard to pick any individual piece. Like you can basically rotate through whatever Boston starter / main bench guys you want. Otherwise, I don't see any priorities here. Like, is Derek White interesting at 4,400? No, but like you can play him. I just don't know how to talk about Boston here.
Agreed.
It's a shame. And then we get a little bit more confusing on the Cleveland side. Q tag on Darius Garland. Looks like he's going to be playing. I assume he just steps right into what his normal role is supposed to be. This was a facial injury. I can't imagine he's like limited in any way from like a minutes perspective, but we do have to try to figure out what's going on with this team. The easy thing is, I think we can completely ignore Cleveland except for one thing. For some strange reason, Darius Garland is 6,600 today on DraftKings.
Yeah, how many minutes do you think he plays? Because it was an eye injury, so
I give him 34.
Yeah, I don't expect him to be super limited, unless we hear
I don't know.
That he is.
I don't know why he would. Especially, like, if he's starting, I have no reason to suspect he's not doing just normal things. If they want to bring him off the bench for one game just to get acclimated, I could see it. And then obviously you could project his minutes a little bit differently. But
yeah,
my assumption is Garland starts, he plays 34 minutes, and he's somewhere around a fantasy point per minute guy, at which point 6,600 looks incredible.
Yeah, full participant at practice yesterday. It's solely a conditioning thing. And I mean, he's an NBA player. He's obviously starting at a pretty and he had ramped up for the season. It's not like I'd be a little bit more concerned if like this were, he missed the preseason and this were like his first game, but like he was in shape and then he, missed some time. But yeah, unless we hear something, I'm assuming he's playing like low to mid 30s.
Yeah, I assume like there's nothing stopping him from running on a treadmill and stuff while he's hurt too. So 34 minutes of Darius Garland at 6,600. I don't understand how that price is what it is for this game, but kudos to DraftKings. He's 7,500 on FanDuel. I don't find anything on Cleveland to be appealing. Highest owned guy on Cleveland is 6% owned Jared Allen on FanDuel. That's like nobody stands out to me there. Even Garland only at 9% on DraftKings. If that holds, like I think he's under-owned.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, the issue is going to be one, like there's a lot of question marks still with him. So I get why he would only get 10% ownership on a 10-game slate, because not only is the playing time a question mark, you've gotten 6 minutes playing with Donovan Mitchell so far this year.
Yeah.
So, that's obviously a big question mark too. Like Darius Garland is really, really good, but who knows exactly how this fit's going to work with Mitchell. We talked about it at the very beginning of the season that until we get more information, I'm basically treating Mitchell as Colin Sexton when, for Darius Garland purposes. And we know that Sexton was less productive with Garland, but he was still, around a fantasy point per minute guy. And he's also somebody that's just likely to keep improving, from an NBA standpoint. So I still think he's going to look good, but like that's a big question mark too, is how exactly does he fit with Donovan Mitchell early on?
We can't go to Mitchell really today, right? 9,400 on DK, 9,500 on FanDuel. Has to take some sort of permanent hit, you would think, based on what we've seen so far.
Yeah. So kind of the flip side of this, because we don't have anything together. When Garland went down, I just started using Mitchell in Utah without Mike Conley as a proxy. Similarly, I think that's kind of how I'm going to view this. Mitchell was still very good in Utah when Mike Conley played, but he got a massive jump. His usage rate went up to like 34%. His assist percentage went up to like 34%, similar to what you've seen this year. I expect that usage rate to get back down to like 29, 30%. I expect the assist percentage to come down a bit as well. So Mitchell still certainly has a ceiling, but you're paying the no Darius Garland price tag on Mitchell and getting Darius Garland. He still clearly can have a big game. Look at what SGA did yesterday for all of the people that just decided to ignore that Josh Giddey was back. They got paid off very nicely by that. Yeah. Sure, he could just go light up Boston here, but you're paying an absolute premium, assuming Darius Garland is back and playing some semblance of normal minutes.
Do you have anything you want to add for Mobley or Allen? My assumption is LeVert starts, but I think they're dangerously close to making that Dean Wade. I don't know how much that actually matters. I'm not going to those guys to begin with, but
yeah, I was gonna say I think it could be either one. I don't really care. Like Dean Wade is at 4,300. I'm good. Karis LeVert's up to 6,700. Like he's another one that he's just gotten a no Garland bump, and I'm not paying 6,700 for Karis LeVert when he has to deal with Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland having the ball. Like I still think it's likely, even if he comes off the bench, that LeVert is in the closing lineup frequently. So I think the minutes are still fine. I think it probably depends on how the game is going, score wise. But like I think that even off the bench, you're probably getting around 28, 30 minutes from LeVert, but I can't pay that price tag for him. Evan Mobley's always okay at 6,200. Allen always has upside, but there's no shortage of guys in that price range that are going to look decent.
I think they're crazy if they're starting LeVert. It makes no sense whatsoever for this team. I wonder how long it's going to take them.
Who were we talking about the other day? I don't remember. There was a spot. It was a similar spot where it was just like, we were talking about Kobe White when the Sumu was in versus out. It's the same thing to me. Like Karis LeVert, obviously from just a watching basketball or DFS standpoint, it's just going to be like, oh, like Karis LeVert's better than Dean Wade. What are they doing? But like Karis LeVert serves no role if Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland are both on the floor.
Right. It's a perfect 6-man role for him. You start Dean Wade, you get a little bit more defense out there on the wings, and then, your first sub is Karis LeVert for one of those other two guards. Right. And like everything makes sense when you do that.
Right. And then to me, the closing lineup is basically if they're playing from behind, then sure, you put LeVert out there. He's an extra scorer if, he's at least capable of scoring. Still you're looking for Garland and Mitchell to be the top two guys. If you're playing from ahead, then go with whatever you can defensively.
Yep. I think we're on the same page there. That said, this first game is basically meaningless from a fantasy perspective, other than that stupid Garland price.
You going to call this one going to overtime again, or?
Feels like I should, right?
Yeah.
Called it on the show last time. It doesn't feel like that's the same sort of problem today because of, I don't know, like 10 games. It just feels meaningless now.
Yeah, because that was like 6 games later or something.
Yeah, it was a little bit more important. We can go to this one. We got a lot of talking points here. Sacramento, 6.5-point dogs at Miami, 226 total. For the Kings, we actually get, this feels like the first time we're getting like real value this season. De'Aaron Fox is out, got hurt in their most recent game. We're going to get Davion Mitchell as the starter. It seems he started the second half, played like real normal starter run. I gave him 33 minutes. Davion Mitchell, 4,200 on DraftKings, 4,900 on FanDuel. So FanDuel got out in front of it. Absolute no-brainer, first guy into lineups, cash game, lock. That is Davion Mitchell, correct?
Yeah, just based on the rotations we saw last game. And also the rotations we've seen earlier this year. On the one hand, it would be easy to say, oh, well, Davion Mitchell was barely playing minutes. But he was just exclusively backing up De'Aaron Fox. So It makes me more confident that you're getting Davion Mitchell as the backup here.
Yeah, I don't have anything else to add. If you play cash games and he's not in them and everything looks like it does today, like just write that person's name down. 45% owned on DraftKings right now. Looks incredible. 25% owned on FanDuel. I think 4,900 is pretty close to correct. Like he's still a little underpriced, but it's not as crazy of a value. Still like him, still getting to him, but I can't talk about him in the same way that I would talk about him on DK.
By the way, this isn't the first time we've had value this year. You didn't play the Tyus Jones slate.
Okay. Thank you.
But it's a similar thing where this is where basketball is just so much different than any other sport. Like he's going to be super popular and you probably should just live with it unless we get a bunch of other value elsewhere, because he's not a bad point per minute guy when he's on the floor, and he's just likely to play a lot of minutes. I think the Tyus Jones spot was a little bit safer just because we had a huge sample last year of Tyus Jones basically on that same team in the same offense playing 30 minutes a start and averaging a fantasy point per minute without Morant. But it's a very similar spot where, barring foul trouble or just something ridiculous happening, you should be getting a lot of minutes from Mitchell, and he's a good enough point per minute guy.
I don't know how many other changes. You would think somebody's just going to soak up a bunch of this usage, but I don't know where it's actually going to go. I'm very happily going back to Sabonis. I'm going to Harrison Barnes. I'm going to Kevin Huerter. I'm not going to Keegan Murray, but it doesn't appear that anybody else is going to Keegan Murray. So now I kind of feel like I want to go to Keegan Murray. I don't know what to do here, but I think Sabonis stands out most. I also think there's some secondary ball handling for Kevin Huerter that could be pretty interesting in 5,500.
Yeah, I agree with that. We sort of saw that in Atlanta. There were certainly those games where Huerter would take on a much bigger role if Trae Young wasn't playing. Since the start of last year, with no De'Aaron Fox or Tyrese Halliburton on the floor, 0.89 DraftKings points per minute for Davion Mitchell. Sabonis at 1.28 DraftKings points per minute. So actually only 191 minutes, but not the same sort of bump that I expected. His rates are pretty much in line with what he's done this year. 22% usage rate, 29% assist percentage, 20% rebounding percentage. Huerter, we obviously don't really have anything. Keegan Murray's played 68 minutes this year without Fox. 0.97 DraftKings points per minute, but still only a 20% usage rate, 8% assist percentage. So the rates don't really back up that jump in production.
I didn't really get to him. I'm getting to Sabonis. We have Sabonis at 9% ownership on FanDuel, 8,100, has the power forward eligibility. That's going to be one of my favorite plays today. I know I've been going to the Sabonis well a lot. He's still been a 1.3 FanDuel point per minute guy so far this season. You would expect some of these pieces to fit together and he gets some sort of like monster ceiling game. But of all the days to do it, like it feels like a day where De'Aaron Fox isn't there, where you can sort of unlock a little bit more of Sabonis.
Yeah, agreed. Like, I think that there's an easier path to him doing well. Somebody in chat said they think Malik Monk has a higher ceiling than I assume Davion Mitchell. I think I know what you're getting at in that Monk is a better scorer. The reason that I don't think it's remotely close in terms of, like, you can't say he has a higher ceiling is even without De'Aaron Fox in the second half last game, Malik Monk played 7 minutes.
Yeah, so I don't know what they're doing here.
Yeah, I don't know either. I sent you a lineup on that slate where I had a really good lineup with like 1% on Malik Monk, and Fox goes down. I'm like, oh, this might actually be really good. And then he just barely played. So like, I agree that if they had similar minutes projections, Monk would have the higher ceiling because he's just capable of, he's more likely to just light it up. But when you have, one guy that played starter minutes and the other guy played 7, you can't say he has a higher ceiling because they're just projected so far apart.
I'm surprised to see those minutes. It seems like Kevin Huerter is very clearly miles ahead of him, especially for like secondary ball handling as well here for this team.
Yeah. So like in large field tournaments, if you want to just like gamble on some Malik Monk and hope he gets minutes, then fine. But that's, a totally different conversation. The other very concerning thing from a Malik Monk standpoint is in that second half rotation, the backup point guard was Matthew Dellavedova. It was not Malik Monk or Kevin Huerter.
Yeah, that was wild to me. I don't know why they would do that, but here we are. Harrison Barnes, I think, looks good. 4,900 on both sites. That fall from grace on his price. He's undervalued. Ownership is coming into him right now, so nothing really to add there. Do you have anything else you want to talk about for Sacramento?
Harrison Barnes is still cheap. Not sure if you had mentioned that or not, but yeah, still fine going there. Trey Lyles played like 20 minutes off the bench. I doubt that you need him on a 10-game slate.
I hope
so. Yeah, I think it's pretty much like I would love to get to Sabonis. Obviously, center only makes it kind of difficult, but even if like the baseline projection is about the same, I think the ceiling is just higher because there's one less guy. Like when De'Aaron Fox plays, no matter how well Sabonis is playing, De'Aaron Fox is going to be involved.
Yep.
Davion Mitchell could just go stand in a corner and play defense and nobody's going to care. 4,200 for Mitchell obviously looks great. I mentioned it about 0.9 DraftKings points per minute. Actually, I want to see what he's done. I don't know how many minutes he's played with Sabonis, without Fox or Halliburton, but that's probably good.
The Halliburton piece won't matter if Sabonis is on.
What'd you say?
The Halliburton piece, you don't have to worry about.
I just already had Halliburton there. Davion Mitchell's played 163 minutes with Sabonis on and Fox off. 0.79 DraftKings points per minute, 20.4% usage rate, 22% assist percentage. So again, not quite as good as Tyus Jones, but a very similar play.
On the Miami side, we're going to have some question marks here. We don't know the status of Tyler Hero yet. He left yesterday with an injury. My assumption is that he's not going to play, but I have not taken him out yet. That said, Butler, Bam, Lowry, Hero, I've got some interest in these guys because they get to face Sacramento. It's a really not good Sacramento defense. There's no ownership coming into these guys. Kyle Lowry's at 11%. Butler's at 3%. Bam is 5%. Hero, obviously, we're just like waiting on his status, but we're going to get that status no matter what before 7:30. On the FanDuel side, Butler's at 11%. Bam's in single digits. Caleb Martin is the highest owned guy here. I like the pieces for Miami just because they face Sacramento.
Yeah, same boat. We got 37 minutes again yesterday for Bam Adebayo. Looking back at his games earlier this year, he's got a couple of back-to-backs. One of them, he only played 28 minutes in the first game, played 38 in the second one. The 28 minutes was a blowout. But October 21st and 22nd, you got 35 minutes and 36 minutes. So not overly concerned about his playing time here. That's 3 games in a row now. We've gotten 37 to 38 minutes. He's averaging around 35 for the season. So I still think he looks good. I ended up not getting as much of him yesterday as I had planned, and that really sucked because it meant that I got even more Vooch, and Bam did fine. Vooch did not. But yeah, still want to get back here. 7,800. I think that at low ownership, he makes sense, kind of similar to Sabonis. It's another reason why I think, you probably don't end up getting carried away in terms of total exposure to either of these guys, just because I don't want to just slam in Bam and not play a 3% on Sabonis or vice versa. But They both look very good. Beyond that, Jimmy Butler, 8,800 is fine. Lowry at 5,900 is fine, assuming he's playing. If Hero's out, I do think that's a bump for Butler. You should see his usage rate go up. Probably see a little bit of a bump in usage for Adebayo and maybe for Lowry, but still should be the third option there.
I don't have too much else here. Do you think if there's no Hero, do you think that we get enough minutes from Duncan Robinson for him to be interesting at 3,200, or is it not going to matter?
I doubt it. I think you just get solidified Max Strus minutes probably.
Yeah.
Robinson did play a ton in the second half yesterday.
I know.
And he'd actually played a lot in the first half too.
Shooting guard, small forward, 3,200. That's why I'm asking.
So they had a really...
Your boy Gabe Vincent played 31 minutes.
Yeah, what happened to Caleb Martin yesterday?
That I don't know. I mean, obviously Hero hurt. Caleb Martin, I don't know.
Yeah, I think he kind of just stayed on the bench, which isn't something that I expect to regularly happen. But their second half rotation basically was still... So the rotation they ran was interesting if you are trying to make a case for Duncan Robinson. Max Strus still basically just played the non-Caleb Martin minutes.
I mean, here's what happened. He was minus 18 and everybody else wasn't.
Yeah, so he just played like shit.
Yeah,
so the fact that Martin didn't play a lot in the second half is very concerning for Duncan Robinson. The pro Duncan Robinson case would be if they really just don't want to play Strus and Martin together, like they didn't in the second half, but they had in the first half. So I don't know. I think Duncan Robinson at 3,200 certainly could get hot, play 18 minutes or something if Hero's out, but also probably just not going to be necessary on a slate this big.
Anything else for Miami?
No.
Okay. Well then, actually, I see what I did here. Let's do this and do this. Let's talk schedule for the rest of the day. Pretty easy here, which evidently I pasted in the wrong spot in this run sheet. But luckily, I have everything else open right now. NFL Strategy Show Ownership Edition coming up at 11 a.m. And then we don't have much else after that. NBA Deeper Dive will kick off at 5:15. That will be Adam because we've got a 7:30 lock tonight. And then I will be back with Eric Lindquist at 6:30 tonight, taking you all the way up until lock, plus another half hour. So pretty easy slate for today. You get NFL right after this, and then we close it out with more NBA talk. So again, hit that like button. 360 people in this place. The Atlanta Hawks are 2-point dogs in New York, 228 total. No real news for Atlanta other than Onyeka Okongwu is questionable, which I do think becomes mildly interesting for Clint Capella in the sort of way that we talked about yesterday. Otherwise, Yeah, everything is fine for Atlanta. Ownership, 15% coming to Trey at 9,900, 12% coming to Capella at 5,100. DeJounte Murray is chalky on FanDuel and should be. He's only 8,700, projected for 21% ownership. I agree there. But I'm interested in Atlanta and particularly Capella if we do lose Okongwu in this one, because I think he just sees a couple extra minutes. I don't think that they need to go to a heavy Frank Kaminsky lean, or potentially more minutes for John Collins at the 5.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all if you kind of just got the old Atlanta rotation where John Collins is the backup center, which would be really good for him. There's no real reason they can't do that against Toronto.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure what purpose Frank Kaminsky serves.
Knicks.
Wait, what?
They play the Knicks. You
Oh,
said
yeah.
Toronto.
There's also no reason you can't do it against the Knicks. Yeah, I don't know what I was looking at, but I don't really know what purpose like Kaminsky serves on that team. So it wouldn't surprise me at all. And they have the wings to do it too. You know, you can put AJ Griffin in the rotation. You give Jalen Johnson a bit more run. You have both of the Holidays that, you know, can play multiple positions. So to me, it would be pretty easy if they want to just make John Collins the backup center. We know that's really good for his production. So I think it would be interesting if Okongwu's out for Capella for the same reasons that Vooch is interesting the last couple of games without Drummond. You can just get more minutes for Capella. He's really cheap. Even if Okongwu's in, Capella's playable just because that price tag is so inexpensive. 1.11 draft. Nope, that's since last year. Hasn't been as productive this year. The usage rate's down a bit. You know, we've talked about that, but still basically as cheap a price tag as you're going to get. 0.93 DraftKings points per minute this year. Collins at 0.97, only a 16.7% usage rate, but those center minutes are really valuable. So if Okongwu's out, I think both of those guys start to look better.
You and me both. How do you feel about Trey today or Murray? Anything interesting other than just like they look pretty good?
No, they just look pretty good. You mentioned the FanDuel price on Murray. I think that makes a lot of sense. Trey's at 1.37 DraftKings points per minute, 35% usage, 41% assist percentage, playing 36 minutes or so, 14% ownership, 14% chance of being optimal. Just seems pretty much correct.
Hunter, not really interested in. I don't really have anything else here to say about Atlanta. Just an interesting spot that we need to keep him. It's not often that you're like, oh, the backup center's out, like nothing really matters, but I think there's some trickle down.
Yeah, I mean, I typically actually think that's one of the most interesting spots in DFS because, like, a lot of times you can, if you get the rotation right, you can actually find like things like Vooch being 5% owned the first day that Drummond was out and just playing 6 minutes more than his season average.
On the Knicks side, I think they're pretty interesting because they get to face Atlanta here. Brunson, Randall, Barrett, all a little over 10% owned on DK. I think the pricing looks really solid. I don't mind getting to Fournier or the two centers or even quickly to an extent on the opposite side. Like, I just think that they're all priced a little lower than they should be. FanDuel's a little bit different. Barrett is 5,800 and has the MPE, 25% owned. I think it's totally deserved. Randall's 7,400, has power forward center. He's 18% owned. I think that's deserved as well. The rest of the guys don't look as good to me, but on a point per dollar basis, I think the Knicks stand out today on DraftKings.
Yeah, I think they look pretty good. I'm already annoyed. So we have RJ Barrett getting 12% ownership. If he's chalky, this is 100% going to be the game where he actually makes shots. That's just how DFS works, or has worked for the last few years in the NBA, it seems. But RJ Barrett has the second highest usage rate on this team at 24.7%. He's only averaging 0.79 DraftKings points per minute because he's not contributing peripherals, but he also has a 47.7% true shooting percentage. He's going to start knocking down more shots sooner or later. There's pretty much no way that he doesn't. At 6,300, he just looks pretty good at that price tag. I do wish you were getting a little bit less ownership, but still I think he makes sense. Brunson at 6,900 getting 11% ownership seems fine, averaging 1.08 DraftKings points per minute this year, about a 30% assist percentage, 22.9% usage rate. Randall, not the same fantasy producer that he has been in previous years because Jalen Brunson is cutting into those assists so much. But he still looks fine. He's blowing 13% ownership on DraftKings. He's only 7,700, so he's not priced at that same point that you were getting in previous seasons where he was, handling the ball a ton. Still has a 15% assist percentage, 14% rebounding percentage, leads the team with a 26% usage rate and 1.12 DraftKings points per minute. So all three of those guys to me look good. If you want to gamble on the centers, that's fine. You mentioned Quickly at 4,300. He's always kind of appealing to me when he's low owned, just because if he plays well, he can close over Fournier, and it kind of just becomes like self-fulfilling, which is cool. Not any sort of a priority, but I do think probably going a little bit under owned and underpriced. And also, Hartenstein at 4,200. There's like on average, you're probably getting 21-ish minutes from him. But if Robinson gets in foul trouble, Hartenstein plays more. If Hartenstein just plays well, Hartenstein can play more. So he's another one where I don't mind taking some shots there.
I agree. Already at 10% ownership, which is funny, but that's the $4,200 price tag for you.
Yeah.
By the way, on the Knicks side, Quentin Grimes is questionable. If he plays, I think Cam Reddish just leaves the rotation and Quentin Grimes steps into it. Otherwise, I think Reddish just stays. I don't think it matters either way.
Do you have any interest in Fournier?
Yeah, I do actually. I have him projected pretty well. 4K on DraftKings is a crazy price tag for him, just from like what we normally get out of him. I gave him 26 minutes. Like that can pay off easily.
Yeah, he can play his way into more minutes. Want to play, but he's 4K and not getting ownership. Yeah. The way I kind of think about it, I just talked about why I think RJ Barrett does better going forward. He shot really poorly, but to this point in the season, RJ Barrett's averaging 0.79 DraftKings points per minute. Evan Fournier is averaging 0.82 DraftKings points per minute. Barrett is $2,300 more expensive and 2 to 3 times as popular. He's playing more minutes, so obviously, even if you were just to say that these rates are what they are, he's still going to project higher. But, from what we've seen this year, you're talking about the same fantasy production and you're just getting a much cheaper Evan Fournier.
Yeah, I'd certainly like taking that shot. Anything else for the Knicks?
Nope.
All right, now we go to the 8 o'clock set. Charlotte Hornets, 5.5-point dogs in Chicago, 229 total. Same status that we've had for Charlotte. No Terry Rozier, no Cody Martin, no LaMelo Ball, which means we get to do the same stuff we've been doing. Lots of ownership coming into these guys. Dennis Smith is basically 10. Hayward just north of 10. Kelly Oubre north of 10. PJ Washington at 16, which I don't really love. Mason Plumlee's at 14% ownership. Smith, Hayward, and Oubre are all in double digits on the FanDuel side. I mean, I've got my focus for sure on the Smith, Hayward, Oubre side, and I think all three of those guys look basically identical relative to salary. I still like getting to them, though, because the matchup against Chicago is pretty good.
Yeah, and their prices just aren't really changing. By the way, I figured out why I thought Atlanta was playing Toronto. They played Toronto last game, so I just had that in front of me.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but yeah, no, the prices still just look good on Charlotte. Dennis Smith Jr. coming in at 6,700. He's around the fantasy point per minute guy. I don't expect 6 steals and a block this game, but he's going to get his minutes. He's been a fantasy point per minute guy basically for his career. Only getting 8% ownership because there is plenty of opportunity cost in that price range. PJ Washington at 5,700. He's been playing a lot of minutes when he's able to avoid foul trouble. That's good to see. Mason Plumlee is still cheap at 4,700, so he's getting some ownership. Hayward at 6,500. I don't know what happens to this guy at halftime, but it's been 2 games in a row where he goes into the half looking great and then just does not score in the second half and finishes with like 28 fantasy points. But at some point, he's probably going to put 2 halves together and end up looking pretty good. Kelly Oubre at 6,100 looks fine. It's difficult, I think, to like separate these guys and really prioritize one, but I just think that the whole team pretty much looks good.
Yeah, I'm with you. Well, how many minutes are you willing to give PJ Washington here? Because he has really seen a rise in minutes over these past few games. Are you going north of 30? I've always been so loath to do it.
I think I went 31 last game. He played 36. I might get to 32 here.
Yeah, I think I might have him slightly under projected there. I need to give him those minutes. So I'm going to give him
one reason that I am willing to do it pretty quickly. Like Charlotte's been a really difficult team to project their rotation because early on in the year, there were games where like PJ Washington was in foul trouble and then Charlotte was involved in blowouts and then you take Rozier out. So it was really difficult to get an actual feel for this rotation. So I am pretty willing to just say like, okay, like PJ Washington, non-foul trouble PJ Washington is a 34 to 36 minute guy.
We also need to remember this is not the same coach and rotations that we were used to having for PJ Washington over the past 2 years. So no reason that he can't just be stepping into more minutes. But I think the Charlotte side of this game looks really good.
Agreed.
And then so does the Bulls side of this one. Much more difficult to talk about. So Zach LaVine on the second half of the back-to-back, I don't assume we are going to see him. And I think that report actually did come out that like he's leaning towards not playing today. But yeah, I took Zach LaVine
before the season started.
Right. Oh, yeah. That's what happens when you're going to skip the first 2 games for injury management, too. We also have Q tags still on Drummond and Kobe White. We don't know the status of both of those guys because they are on a back-to-back. White tried to warm up yesterday, ended up not playing. I don't know where Drummond's status is. I put Drummond back in for right now. I think that's fine-ish. We should know this one either way. The Kobe White piece is really interesting because we've seen him play 30 plus minutes in 2 of the games that we didn't have LaVine. I gave him 28 just to be pessimistic. He's 3,700 on DraftKings if he's playing today, and one of the best plays that you can get to, correct?
I think so, yeah. The concern is that, he still has to deal with DeRozan and Vooch from, a scoring standpoint, but at 3,700, the minutes should be there, and it's just going to make him look like a good value. He's getting around 10% ownership. Since the start of last year, without LaVine or Lonzo on the floor, 0.87 DraftKings points per minute for White. If you put DeRozan and Vooch on, I am assuming that's going to drop a bit. But yeah, it doesn't. Still 0.87 DraftKings points per minute, 18.8% usage rate, 14% assist percentage. Yeah, he's just going to look like a good point per dollar option, assuming LaVine's out and he's in.
Speaking of good point per dollar options, Patrick Williams, 3,700 on DraftKings, small forward, power forward eligibility. There's another one for you. If you're looking for value today, it appears Chicago, it has the opportunity for Chicago to be aggressively the best value today.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of guys that you can get to that are cheap, and then even the mid-range guys like Vooch and DeRozan, assuming LaVine is out, they're going to look a bit underpriced as well.
Yeah, because DeMar DeRozan is 7,900 on FanDuel tonight, shooting guard, small forward, and pulling 34% ownership, which I actually think might even be a tad low for what we're doing here. Kobe White not pulling any ownership on FanDuel. Not surprised. That's a Q tag thing and a LaVine thing for right now, so I'm not reading into that too much. But I love DeRozan on FanDuel. I like Patrick Williams and Kobe White on both sites. Happy to get to Vooch. If Andre Drummond is out, Vooch looks even better. Dosunmu, I think, is perfectly acceptable today at 5,400, not really pulling much ownership. Bulls look fantastic today.
Agreed. Without LaVine on the floor this year, DeRozan's usage rate is a bit lower than it was last year at 32.7%. If you go back to the start of last year, it's 36.6%. But still 1.37 DraftKings points per minute in the 169 minutes he's played without LaVine. Vooch is at 1.15 DraftKings points per minute this year, 22.6% usage rate. Dosunmu's at 0.88 DraftKings points per minute, 18.5% usage rate. Since the start of last year, I mentioned DeRozan with the 36.6% usage rate. Also this year, DeRozan a 29.9% assist percentage without LaVine on the floor. So you get a bump there. Dosunmu 0.81 DraftKings points per minute since the start of last year. Vooch also less usage this year, 1.24 DraftKings points per minute, and a 26.5% usage rate since the start of last year. So probably settle somewhere in the middle there. Either way, Vooch's going to look really good. DeRozan's going to look really good. White's going to look like a good point per dollar value. Dosunmu's going to look better than he normally does. Patrick Williams looks better than he normally does. There's a lot to get to from the Bulls.
Absolutely. And then if we happen to lose White here as well, let's say we don't have White again, we don't have Drummond again. You firing up Goran Dragic at 3,400 here?
Assuming Caruso? He plays, yeah. He played their last back-to-back.
Yeah. He's played every game so far this season.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going there. Caruso can play 30.
What?
Caruso can play 30 at that point plus.
Yeah.
Work him into it. You have to have all things Chicago today, I think.
Yeah, there's a lot of usage available, assuming LaVine is out. And then the potential for a lot of minutes as well if Kobe White is out. And then obviously Vooch also looks better if Drummond is out.
Anything else for Chicago?
All of it.
Agreed. We go to Clippers, 5-point favorites in Houston, 222 total. We know what's going on with the Clippers. We have no Kawhi Leonard, no Robert Covington, still in COVID protocols, although he could get ruled in later today, and that wouldn't surprise me. So keep an eye on it. John Wall back after missing from the back-to-back. And then I think it's pretty easy to not really want all that much from the Clippers. Paul George at 9,800 now on DraftKings. He's 9K on FanDuel, so that price has started to climb. Still getting a little bit of ownership. Looks fine. Marcus Morris and Reggie Jackson are both 15% owned on FanDuel. I guess that's mildly interesting, but I think probably more ownership than I'm looking for. I'd rather just mostly stay away from the Clippers today, who are basically at full strength.
Yeah, I mean, George still clearly has that massive upside. You and I had talked about it earlier in the year, right before he had basically his version of the Kyrie game. But then he showed it last game, basically 80 fantasy points. He can do whatever he wants on this team when Kawhi is out. So the upside's there, but the price is starting to catch up. Overall, since the start of last season, 1.3 DraftKings points per minute for George. So clearly a high ceiling. Outside of that, Zubats at 6,500 is pretty much always going to look fine, but it's just tough because, for not that much more, you can get to Vooch and Adebayo and Sabonis, and then for less, you can go to guys like Capella or Plumlee. So kind of like in a dead zone, but also that should drive his ownership down a bit. Marcus Morris at 5,200 is going to look fine. Not a priority, just somebody that sort of can fit into lineups. But yeah, I'm with you. I don't think the Clippers are anywhere near the level of priority that, teams like the Bulls are.
I'm going to move it right on over to Houston now, just because Clippers intricacies are kind of annoying. For the Houston side of this one, we have no Jae'Sean Tate, still no Bruno Fernando. We kind of have stabilized this rotation at least a little bit. Jalen Green and Kevin Porter Jr. are looking pretty good at 6,500 and 7,700 on DK. Jalen Green just 6K on FanDuel, pulling 20% ownership. I'm about 2x on Jalen Green right now. I think that price tag is very nice. Şengün, 5,900 on DraftKings. There's another center that you can get to that's even better than Zubats in this particular spot, I think. Already pulling the 20% ownership. A little bit more expensive on FanDuel, but still very appealing. I like these main three Houston guys of Green, Porter, and Şengün.
Yeah, I think I might be a little bit lower on you on Green just because of the lack of peripherals this year. I think that he certainly has a very high ceiling. He's got a 26.5% usage rate. That's second highest on the team. We know that he can just, go nuts as a scorer, but he's been really uninvolved otherwise. 10% assist percentage, 6.5% rebounding percentage. So like the upside's there, but I just think with how deep the guard position is, I might have a little bit of trouble getting to him. Kevin Porter Jr., though, 27% usage rate, 25.8% assist percentage, and just shy of a 10% rebounding percentage, averaging about a quarter of a fantasy point more per minute than Jalen Green, playing 35 minutes a night. So I do think I like him quite a bit, only getting 10% ownership. Şengün looks great at 5,900, played another 28 or 29 minutes last game. He's averaged 1.23 DraftKings points per minute this year. So really like Şengün, really like Porter. Not trying to talk anyone off of Jalen Green based on just, the fact that he's capable of scoring so many points, but I just think it's going to be kind of difficult for me to get there at similar ownership to guys like Porter or, a bunch of other guards.
That's fair. I don't have too much interest in like Jabari Smith or Eric Gordon or the rest of these guys. We saw Kenyon Martin play a bunch last time out with no Jae'Sean Tate, but I don't really think he becomes all that interesting at 4,300.
Yeah, I mean, assuming that Gordon is going to play, and then you have Martin at 4,300. I don't really have interest in either guy. Jabari Smith at 6,100, not that appealing to me at this point. You have, Şengün playing the center minutes. Smith's averaged about 0.8 fantasy points per minute this year. I don't have much interest outside of Porter, Şengün, and a little bit of Jalen Green.
Alrighty, folks. Prize Picks is the presenting sponsor of this show. It's great to have them. If you follow the link in the description of the video, head on over to Prize Picks and make a deposit. They will match that deposit up to $100. You don't have to use an optimizer here. We're talking player props. You're taking over-unders. Put together 5-on-1 card. You can net up to 10x your entry fee. Adam and I like to touch on a couple of these every single morning on this strategy show. Today is going to be no different. I've got the points props pulled up. Who would be the first name that stands out to me? Let's talk about a guy that we just talked about. Jalen Green, over under 21.5 real points.
We have him at 19.9, so I'll take the under.
Okay. I got him at 21.8. So I am team Jalen Green, which the team that I'm willing to be on. Evan Fournier. There's somebody that we talked about a little bit ago. Over under 11.5 fantasy. Or sorry, real
over.
points.
We have him at 12.3 in only 26 minutes.
I got him at 11.8, so it looks like we're in the same ballpark there. RJ Barrett, someone that has not been shooting the ball all that well so far this season. 20.5 real points.
That's a lot. We have the under 18.2.
Yeah, I got him at 19.1. Doesn't mean he's not a good fantasy play for today, but maybe that prop shows what a little bit of that upside looks like if you don't, try to project him as a 47% true shooting guy moving forward. And then we'll close it out with one big number. How do you feel about Trae Young's raw point potential here? 28.5.
Who was that?
Trae Young.
No. Over 30.1.
I got him at 29.5, but either way, we're taking the over on Trae Young. Guys, that is Prize Picks. Again, link in the description can get you $100 of a match bonus. So put in 100, they'll match with 100. Detroit Pistons running it back against the Milwaukee Bucks. They're 11.5-point dogs, 224 total. For the Pistons, everything that we normally get is here, other than Jalen Duren still out with that injured ankle. So we're getting the same sort of rotation that we have seen over their last game, at least. I don't have anything to talk about here for the Pistons. It's a terrible matchup against Milwaukee. Bucks defense is incredible right now, particularly with Brook Lopez being healthy. No one's in double digits in ownership. Cade got to 9.4. I got to a little bit of Sadiq Bey at 5,200 on FanDuel, but I don't have any real Detroit talking points.
Yeah, it's the same boat. This is a team that I think would just be a lot more interesting if this slate were smaller. You know, Cade Cunningham, obviously it's a difficult matchup, but he's also just got a ridiculous ceiling. But like the opportunity cost, in addition to an $8,100 price tag, just makes it tough to want to get a lot of him. And the ownership is coming in around 10%. I think it's a good matchup for Bojan Bogdanovic, you know, what he does versus what the Bucks are going to allow him to do. But that only gets you so far when you're talking about a $5,900 price tag on this slate. Isaiah Stewart at 5,700. Sure, but isn't going to stand out. It's just tough. There's guys that I like, you know, individually, but just when you start getting to the point where it's like, well, I can only roster 8 guys or 9 guys, depending on your site, these guys get pushed back pretty quickly.
Yeah, I wish I had more to say here, guys, but, you know, we've got 9 more teams to touch on, and this is just not one of those spots where I'm going to be spending much time. I have like 6% at best of anybody here. Milwaukee side's a little bit different. Giannis in particular, 12,600 on DraftKings. So they are pricing him as appropriately as they can. FanDuel, on the other hand, 11,600. Just so much easier to get to Giannis on FanDuel. And you're seeing that in an ownership number coming in at 25%. I love Giannis on FanDuel. I would happily get him on DraftKings too. We have those pay down options that make Giannis so much easier to get to today than we had seen previously. But it's not even just Giannis. Brook Lopez is playing 30 minutes a game. He's only 5,400 on DK today. That's $1,200 cheaper than his FanDuel price. Drew Holiday, always viable in the low 8s, also pulling a little bit of ownership. Bobby Portis getting some love around 10% owned. I do like the Milwaukee side of this one.
Yeah, I love the Milwaukee side here. To your point on Giannis, I think it's a good point. Like, at first, when I pulled up the ownership today, I was like, oh, finally, we're going to get a slate where, you know, it's pretty easy to get to Giannis because we have this value. But on DraftKings, he's just correctly priced at 12.6. The issue in getting to him, even though you can with this value, is there's still so many good, really high upside, you know, mid-range or upper mid-range guys, where if Giannis goes for 65, 68 DraftKings points, you know, great. But there's going to be guys for 9K that do the same thing. There's just so many of those really, really good players playing today, whether it's Sabonis or Young or, you know, Holiday or Cunningham or whoever you want to name. There's just so many of those guys. There's going to be players scoring 60 plus fantasy points in that range. So really, you're going to need that 80-point Giannis game probably for him to be an actual good play. And can he do that? Sure. But he's as likely to do that as a lot of these guys are to score 60. So it kind of just puts him back on the same, you know, playing field because they did price him correctly. So obviously I'm happy to get to whatever Giannis I can. He's fantastic. He's averaged 1.78 DraftKings points per minute this year. He's likely to give you 35 or 36 minutes, but it's just tough to prioritize him because he is so expensive and you can make really high upside lineups without paying up that high. The rest of this team, I think, is a lot easier to get to. Drew Holiday has started making shots again. His true shooting percentage has gone from like 38% when I talked about him Saturday to 50%. He's back to 1.25 DraftKings points per minute. That's pretty much what he's done since the start of last year without Chris Middleton on the floor. 25.9% usage rate, 35.5% assist percentage. He looks really good once again. Brook Lopez looks fantastic. They're playing him alongside Bobby Portis a ton. I wasn't sure if they would do it against Detroit like they had a couple of games ago against, I think it was Atlanta, but they did. You got 34 minutes from Lopez last game. You got 27, almost 28 from Portis. So you're seeing again that they're just running them alongside each other a lot, which is good for both of their minutes. Lopez is at 1.08 DraftKings points per minute this year. Portis is at 1.21. They both look really good. Lopez looks a little bit better since he's cheaper. Portis does have that power forward eligibility. So Holiday and Lopez, I think, are my top 2 guys here. Happy to get to Portis. Happy to get to Giannis if I can. It's just really difficult.
There we go.
By the way, Drew Holiday is listed as probable with an illness, so I assume we're going to do the same thing we did with Brook Lopez, where he's listed as probable, and then they call him a game time decision, and hopefully he plays.
That's going to annoy me to no end. Is he really? Yep.
Literally, as you started talking about this game, it came through.
I just clicked refresh, and there it is. All right, let's keep it moving then. We'll go to Toronto at San Antonio. Raptors are 8-point favorites in San Antonio, 225 total. We do not know the status of Fred VanVleet right now. He is questionable. I just assume that he is playing right now. And if he is, stop me if you've heard this before. I like all of Toronto quite a bit. VanVleet, Siakam, Trent, Anunoby, Barnes all look very similar to me relative to salary. I want to get to a lot of them. Trent and Barnes are pulling the most ownership on FanDuel. I'm getting them as well. Siakam's getting that ownership. I'm getting it as well. I like Siakam or VanVleet if he can play, but I want all of Toronto against San Antonio.
Yep. Siakam's price tag keeps rising, and it should. The issue with Siakam is the opportunity cost, but 9,500. Like if you gave Siakam power forward eligibility at 9,400, I would for sure want to play a ton. At center only, I think he's still a really good play. Like the offense is running through him this year. Even with VanVleet in, we've seen VanVleet have basically like a 16 or 17% usage rate. I think that comes up as the year goes on, but 1.37 DraftKings points per minute for Siakam leads the team in usage. His usage rate is at least 10 points higher than every other player on the team. He leads the team in assist percentage as well at 34.2%. He has a 14.7% rebounding percentage. He's been fantastic. The only concern that I have is you're paying a lot more for Siakam at higher ownership than guys like Sabonis or Bam. But it also makes sense because not only is he producing at a higher rate than those guys, he's averaging 38 minutes per game. So you can't sleep on that part as well. Siakam just is going to look really, really good. Scotty Barnes looks fine at 6,800. He'll look better if VanVleet sits. Same with Anunoby at 5,800. Good either way. A little bit better if VanVleet sits. VanVleet's kind of difficult to get to. You know that that those big games are there because he's been in the league a long time and you know what he can do. But at the same time, he has a 16% usage rate this year. He's averaging 1 fantasy point per minute and he's 7,700. So, you can play the game where it's like, oh, I got Fred VanVleet at low ownership when he went nuts, but you're probably going to have more success by just playing, 6, 7, 8% owned guards that are also really good. And just, not playing with Pascal Siakam and more likely to get there.
I kind of like VanVleet just because I don't expect 16% usage to hold. And the fact that he's like, I would have expected his per minute rate to be like, 0.88 or something. The fact that it's still at a fantasy point per minute, I think there's still something there. 7,500 on FanDuel, 7,700 on DraftKings. Hopefully maintains that Q tag until 7 o'clock basically, so that no one really loads up that chamber. But I like getting to VanVleet. I like all of it.
I'm with you on the idea of VanVleet, but do you really care that VanVleet is going to get barely any ownership compared to 10% going to Porter or 7% going to Simons or 9% going to Cunningham?
Probably.
Yeah, I don't know.
I got him at 1.08 FanDuel points per minute here in 37 minutes. I think that looks good. I think all of those other guys also look good.
Yeah, I guess my point, I don't think I'm going to be able to project VanVleet close enough to those guys that I end up really getting there.
Let me see what I have them next to each other. So I've got VanVleet equal to Cade.
Really?
2 points back of Porter. A half point behind Simons.
How many more minutes than Cade do you have VanVleet playing?
4, I think.
That's reasonable.
Cade at 34 or 3. Cade at 30. Yeah, 34, 37.
Yeah.
So that helps too. Either way, I just like Toronto. That's the long and short of it. Because San Antonio's a mess. No Devin Vassell. And then Q tag on Keldon Johnson and Jeremy Sohan. Josh Richardson is available in this one. We didn't see Keldon Johnson, or we didn't see Richardson and Sohan on the 30th. I assume I don't even know what to assume for the San Antonio team right now. Do you like anything for San Antonio? Because Josh Richardson and Trey Jones are pulling 20+% ownership on FanDuel.
Yeah, I like things. I just don't really know what yet. But they're shorthanded. There's going to be a lot of opportunity here. It's not a good matchup, but Trey Jones 0.93 DraftKings points per minute so far this year. Going to look fine. Obviously, no Vassell should make him look a little bit better. Richardson averaging 0.95 DraftKings points per minute so far this year. He's going to look reasonable as well. But Keldon Johnson's like a huge piece here because he's got a 28% usage rate this year. If he doesn't play, there's just so much usage to go around, not necessarily to efficient players, but somebody's got to shoot.
I'm with you. I don't know what to do there. We're getting Richardson with a lot of ownership on FanDuel. I'm a little apprehensive of 27% owned Josh Richardson today, but if Keldon ends up out, maybe that's different. But I am very light on Richardson. I'm just going to find other guys in the fives that are more appealing to me.
Yeah, and Jakob Poeltl's another center that looks good.
Yeah.
So very, 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 very limited sample without either of Devin Vassell or Keldon Johnson this year. But 32 minutes, 68 possessions for Trey Jones with a 34% usage rate.
Yeah, he's going to soak that stuff up big time.
Josh Richardson, 26 minutes, 54 possessions, 25% usage rate.
That'll help.
Josh Primo, 28%.
He's using nothing right now. That's for sure. Yeah, I mean, we need the news here because the Sohan, Keldon Johnson pieces, Keldon in particular, are very important for the trickle down. I don't have anything else to add. Like, they don't have Blake Wesley as a backup any longer. He tore his MCL, so he's going to be out for a bit. Romeo Langford played 34 minutes their last time out. They don't want to do that because he stinks.
I mean, they don't have a choice.
No, they don't have a choice. If we start losing more guys, they don't have a choice. They don't have ball handlers.
Yeah, I mean,
they had one ball handler, but they had to cut him.
Right. Ketabate Diop only played 23 minutes, which was kind of surprising in that game.
Anything else for San Antonio?
Keep an eye on Doug McDermott. Depending on who gets ruled out, he could just have to soak up some minutes and shoot a bunch of threes.
We go to the Utah Jazz, 6-point dogs in Dallas, 221 total. Walker Kessler and Rudy Gay both back. Simone Fontecchio and Leandro Balmaro both out. So the European flavor for Utah not looking all that great. And nothing here looks good for Utah. Highest owned guy on FanDuel is Clarkson at 2.9%. On DraftKings, he gets up to a crisp 6. Those are the high marks. I wouldn't be surprised if I don't have any shares of Utah. This is the ugliest spot for me, and Dallas doesn't look much better.
Why are people not playing Lauri Markkanen?
I mean, I think he's fine today. 7,600 on DraftKings, 7,800 on FanDuel. I don't see it. What am I missing? Talk to me about it.
So, I mean, I don't think he's like somebody that you should be getting, tons of. I had like 50% the other day. I don't expect that to be the case here, but he's still a $7,600 small forward, averaging 1.2 DraftKings points per minute. For comparison, he's $1,300 more than RJ Barrett on a slate where there's a lot of ways you can navigate salaries. So that shouldn't be a huge issue. And he's getting 1/6 the ownership, and he's averaging half a fantasy point per minute more than Barrett is. He's got a 26% usage rate. He's got a 15% rebounding percentage. He's got a 13% assist percentage. He's doing everything for this team. If nobody's going to play Lauri Markkanen, I'm going to end up being right back on Lauri Markkanen.
All right, you have those stats pulled up. I want you to hit me with them again. What did you have for his assist and rebounding rates?
14.8% rebounding, 13.3% assist.
Okay. I don't have him projected all that well. So I have him in at 1.07 FanDuel points per minute for today. It's been 1.22 so far this season. I got him in for 34 minutes, 25% usage, 12% assist rate, 11% rebounding rate. Because I don't know, I don't want to go all the way to the, current 6-game numbers. He projects as a completely reasonable play, but wildly uneventful to me. On paper, in my mind, with guys around him, I get that pivot. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's just a pace thing for this game or what, but it's not popping for me.
Are you factoring in that he's the next Dirk Nowitzki and he's playing in Dallas?
I did miss that piece. I mean, what I think is really the problem, Dallas is dead last in pace. They're the slowest team in the league.
Yeah, it's not an appealing matchup. And that's kind of what I'm saying. I don't think this is a spot where I just slam Lauri Markkanen into half the lineups I'm making. But
yeah,
I think he looks like a fantastic tournament play. I guess he's my Fred VanVleet.
Okay, there you go. It's fine. I have him 4.5 points behind Julius Randle, 2.5 points behind Keldon Johnson if he plays. Just trying to find other guys in that range that play those positions, but it's all guards.
So that's the thing. That's why I really like the idea of Markkanen.
Yeah, I didn't get him on the FanDuel crunch. I don't love it. If I wanted to go to anybody for Utah to be him, but I think they all look actively uninteresting because of the pace of this game. Dallas is just a slog.
And just to harp on the Markkanen thing again for a second, because the position is also what it is for me. Like when you look, there are guys in his price range getting a lot of ownership that I don't think he's worse than.
That's
Like
fair.
whether that's, I mentioned RJ Barrett, but Gordon Hayward's pulling 13% ownership. He's $1,000, $1,100 less expensive. That's there. I mean, I would rather have Markkanen as long as I can make the salary work. We have Scotty Barnes pulling 18% ownership. I'll take Markkanen at 2%. Like I don't love a lot of the guys in this range pulling ownership. If you call it like $6,000 to $8,000 at that position, Oubre 10%, Barrett 12%, Hayward 13%, Barnes 18%, Markkanen 2%, and Markkanen is just like, to me, clearly the best of the group in terms of projection and upside.
Utah is super stacked. I forgot about THT. One, it should be pretty easy to forget about THT. Two, I don't know how THT is like, oh, they're loaded and they have Talen Horton-Tucker. Like, that's not how that works.
What did they do? I wanted to see what they did with Sexton last game. Played 24 minutes. Yeah. Conley played 30. So they played alongside each other a little bit more. It did look like they were going to close together. They closed the first half together. They were going to close the game together. That's interesting. Sexton is only 4,400. I don't think it's particularly actionable today because we have so much value and because the matchup is pretty shitty. But that is something to keep in mind going forward because Sexton, for most of the year, had been backing up Conley. And the assumption was that it was injury related. And then you got the game with Conley out where Sexton just started and played 1 million minutes. So I was kind of curious if that was going to change his rotation going forward. And he did play 24 minutes, including a lot alongside Conley. You could start seeing 26, 28-minute games from Sexton, I think.
I would not be surprised to see that start to happen. On the Dallas side, only guy that got the double-digit ownership was $11,800 Luka Doncic on FanDuel. Everybody else is sub 10%. Luka's 12-3 on DK. I mean, I just like Giannis more than I like Luka, which really makes things more difficult for Luka. That said, if you get to him, it's fine. I don't have any interest in the rest of this Dallas team either. Not with any priorities.
Yeah, Luka very comparable to Giannis for me at, I guess, the more loaded position. But, he's been ridiculously good this year. Giannis is averaging 1.78 DraftKings points per minute. Luka's at 1.76, 41.8% usage, 49.5% assist percentage, 16% rebounding percentage. He's basically doing like what Russell Westbrook was doing without Kevin Durant in Oklahoma City. Probably not rebounding at the same rate, but like that's similar in terms of just every possession is starting and ending with Luka in some way, shape, or form. So the upside's certainly there. Like he can just go for 80, 85, and at that point you're going to need him. But like we said with Giannis, the chances of Luka going for 80 or 85 are very similar to like Trae Young going for 65. So it kind of just ends up being which lineup projects better, and it's probably going to be the one where you're not allocating over $12,000 to one player.
Yep. I can't really pitch DFS or Bullock or Dinwiddie. Christian Wood is questionable. That's important. I guess it would probably free up some additional time for like Maxey. You probably see JaVale become like a 20-minute guy, and I don't become like slightly interesting, but I don't know. It's probably more interesting for like Tim Hardaway Jr.
Yeah. Not sure how much I care for DFS. Like everybody you're naming, with the exception of JaVale McGee, kind of sucks from a fantasy standpoint. But I agree with you. If Christian Wood's out, you should get more. I guess it actually could be a pretty big deal for Hardaway in particular. Like that's more second unit usage as well if Christian Wood is out, and then also increases the chances of Hardaway being in a closing lineup. Like on a slate this big, it wouldn't make him a priority, but it would certainly make a $4,500 Hardaway somebody that I don't mind throwing some darts at. Same goes for a $3,800 Maxey.
Anything else for Dallas?
Who else plays on that second unit? Dinwiddie probably gets more usage if Wood is out. But no, that's it.
If Wood is out, even better spot for Markkanen. I'm not really sure how that path works, but okay. It's probably worse. Christian Wood is terrible defensively, so I would want Markkanen to get to face that. Memphis Grizzlies are 3.5-point favorites in Portland, 230 total. Only problem here for Memphis is that we don't really know anything that we could talk about right now. Q-tag on Bane, Q-tag on Adams, Q-tag on LaRavia. Clark is back. The Bane piece is everything, but at the same time, I have Bane in. There is no ownership coming to this team. 2.9% owned. Santi Aldama is the highest on either site. If you get to Bane or Morant or Brooks, whatever, that's great. You probably get to more Brooks and Morant if Bane happens to be out. If Adams ends up out, we're freeing up some sort of new center run for Brandon Clark or Xavier Tillman or something. But as constituted right now, Memphis to me is not a team I'm getting to.
Yeah, same boat. Like, if you get to any of Morant, Bane, Brooks, Adams, those guys look fine. If Bane is out, Morant and Brooks certainly look better. But Steven Adams is out. Brandon Clark looks, good. But the way it looks right now, there's nothing I would prioritize. I would say I think if I'm going to unowned guys in the price range, I'd rather go to Desmond Bane than Fred VanVleet.
I probably would as well.
Yeah.
But I have them very comparable. But I don't have
I think that they're similar ideas. I just have more confidence in Bane because of his role this year, and also I just think he's a better player.
I do want to hit on Hank the Tank super chat that said, Josh, you make Eric Lindquist watchable. Happy to help. Happy to help. Portland, though. We've got Anthony Simons, 7,600 on DK, 7,800 on FanDuel. 1.5% owned on FanDuel. I don't totally get that, but I'd like to get myself some Simons. We're seeing Shaedon Sharpe get 25% ownership at 4,200. I don't need that permanent value right now, but there's some upside in Sharpe. We don't know the status of Josh Hart yet. He is questionable. I think he's at least a little bit interesting. I like everything here. Simons, Grant, Hart, Nurk. Sharpe's ownership's the only thing slowing me down. I don't think these guys are as appealing on DraftKings.
Yeah, the pricing, is a little bit tighter. 7,600 for Anthony Simons, 7% ownership, probably around where it should be. He's another guy. I used him in the example with VanVleet, where it's just like at 7%, that's very low owned. I think I would rather get to Simons, just given what his role can be without Lillard. If Hart is out, that certainly opens up a lot of minutes. But Nurkic, another center that looks good at 7,500. Simons looks good at 7,600. There's just no shortage of guys in those price ranges at those positions that look good. Josh Hart's up to 6,900. So even if he plays, kind of tough to want to get a lot of that. Jeremy Grant, same thing at 6,300. If you get some, fine. If you don't, also wouldn't really care. Yeah, it's not super appealing on DraftKings, even though it seems like it kind of should be.
Running a little short on time, so we're going to take it over to the Pelicans side for Pelicans Lakers late night hammer 10:30 start. Pels 3-point favorites in LA. The key piece here: we get Herb Jones back. We still have no Brandon Ingram. No one getting any ownership outside of 9% to Zion on the DraftKings side. Zion 22% owned on FanDuel feels a little high to me, but with Zion back now, I think everybody's sort of priced appropriately on the Pelicans. There's not a lot that interests me.
I think 8,700 for Zion on DraftKings is a little bit cheap.
Yeah.
1.3 DraftKings points per minute, 32% usage rate this year, 18% assist percentage, 13% rebounding percentage. He played 30 and a half minutes last game.
That's the problem. He just doesn't play enough.
He could have played like 34 minutes in that game.
Do we think that he's going to play 34 minutes in that game, though? I'll
probably project him for like 32.
I got him in for 30 right now. That's all he's played. 30, 30, 30, 30 straight through. It scares me.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that rotation last game was pretty appealing.
Okay.
Unless maybe they subbed him in earlier than they would have in the fourth, just because they weren't expecting to need him at the end of the game. But he subbed in with 6.5 minutes to go, subbed out with 3 minutes left in a game that the Pels won by 21 points.
Okay. Something I'll look into for
sure. He subbed out the same time CJ McCollum did.
And don't get me wrong, I have 13% on FanDuel at 8,300. I am mildly interested in Zion. I just am scared that he can't play that same 35, 36 that you're getting at. Well, it doesn't seem like he's playing that same sort of run that you're getting from a lot of the other guys you can get on a 10 gamer. But still looks good to me.
And for what it's worth, he played 16 minutes in the first half of that game.
Okay. I'll keep an eye on it. See if they start to ramp him up a little bit. Do you like anything else, though, on the DraftKings side? Because it's kind of gross.
Yeah, if you get to some McCollum, that's fine, but he's priced up for Ingram being out, and then now you have Zion back, so not as appealing. Same goes for JoVo. So
AD is questionable. He's always questionable. He's played every game but one. LeBron's probable. Juan Toscano-Anderson is probable. We got to talk about AD's price tag. This is straight broken. If you're comfortable in playing him, you should be playing him. He's 9,100 on DK today. LeBron is 10.9. You cannot go to LeBron before you go to AD, given those price tags on DraftKings. That said, I think the rest of this team looks pretty terrible.
Yeah, I was gonna say, as someone that pretty frequently just plays LeBron over Anthony Davis, I do agree that the pricing has gotten out of control, and $1,800 is way too big of a price difference between James and Davis. Even though I'm certainly gonna have James projected better, Davis looks really good. I think he's a great option. I guess he's getting 1% ownership because he's questionable. Because
Has to be.
Yeah, there's
He's one of the best plays on DraftKings today.
Yeah. I mean, like, he makes that Zion Williamson play look worse just because he's $400 more. So yeah, love Anthony Davis. LeBron, whatever. I'm probably not going to really be able to get there. Like, John Morant's cheaper. There's a bunch of other guys that are cheaper. Westbrook at 6,400, sure, whatever. Looked good off the bench. But yeah, I think it's pretty much Anthony Davis.
Yeah. AD, by the way, $300 more expensive than LeBron on FanDuel at 10,500. Very different play there, but
so it's kind of like the inverse for me there. Like, there's the scoring is more favorable for Davis, but than DraftKings is. But like, I would have a really difficult time playing Davis over LeBron for more money on FanDuel.
AD, by the way, 600th of a fantasy point per minute better than LeBron so far this season on FanDuel.
Yeah.
That said. All righty.
700ths of a point worse on DraftKings.
Yeah. Well, you've got tournament plays videos coming out later tonight. Injury report video going to be very important. Make sure you guys are watching that. You've got the deeper dive with Greg later on. I'll be back with Eric for Live Before Lock. NFL Strategy Show coming up next. Thank you for being here, and thank you to Prize Picks for being the sponsor. We'll talk to you later. Good luck tonight, everybody. Peace.